Lena's breath jolts out of her as the metal door slams behind her, the echo slicing through the small office where Sienna stands frozen, clutching the straps of a backpack that looks too heavy for her small frame. The room smells like dust and old paper, but Lena barely senses it. Because the second Sienna lifts her eyes, she flinches as if struck, staring at Lena like she's seeing a ghost crawl straight out of her past. A tremor runs through the child's shoulders, thin and sharp, and Lee feels the ground tilt under her. She steps forward, trying to speak, but the words stick thick with all the years she spent being told she wasn't enough, not ready, not capable. Sienna's silence deepens, her lower lip trembling, and Lena realizes this moment is a test she never trained for. Something unspoken presses between them, hot and heavy, as if the air itself knows a truth Lena doesn't. Sienna's fingers twitch once, like she's about to reach for her, then stop, as though terrified of what might happen if she touches her. And just when Lena opens her mouth to bridge the distance, Sienna whispers the sharpest question without sound. "Why do you look exactly like the woman who never came home?" Lena forces herself to breathe as the office door clicks shut behind the social worker who left them alone, the silence thick enough to crush her ribs. Sienna stands rigid, like a cornered animal waiting for the next blow life might throw at her. And Lena feels an old familiar ache rise, the ache of always being seen as the wrong choice, the last choice, the mistake. She crouches down, trying to soften her presence, but Sienna's eyes keep darting toward the exit, toward the shadows, toward anything that isn't her. Lena's hands tremble as she gently sets the file on the desk, pretending not to notice how Sienna flinches at the sound. She wants to tell her she's safe, but safety is a word that means nothing when your world has already cracked in half. Still, Lena forces out a small smile, hoping Sienna will see her, not the ghost she thinks she is. And as the silence stretches thin, Lena senses something shifting, like the tiniest crack of light, pushing through a locked door. Lena guides Sienna out of the office and into the hallway, where the fluorescent lights buzz like angry insects overhead, making the air feel cold and unforgiving. Sienna walks close but not touching, as if being near Lena is safer than being far, yet still not safe enough to reach for her. Lena's throat tightens at the thought of taking this fragile life home. A child who looks at her like she's holding answers she doesn't know how to give. Footsteps echo from somewhere down the hall, and Sienna's breathing hitches, pushing Lena to slow her pace. She wants to say she understands fear, that she's lived her whole life being told she would fail long before she began. But words feel useless here. For now, she just keeps walking, steady and quiet, hoping Sienna will feel the calm she's trying to borrow from thin air. And somewhere deep inside, a seed of resolve begins to take root. The drive home is quiet, the car humming softly, as Lena glances at the rearview mirror, catching Sienna's reflection staring out the window with an expression carved from loss. Lena grips the steering wheel harder than she means to, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders like a heavy coat she can't shrug off. She wants to promise Sienna laughter and safety and everything she's never had herself. But promises feel fragile in a world that has already broken this little girl more times than seem possible. The radio crackles, offering static instead of comfort, and Lena switches it off, choosing the uneasy silence instead. She watches Sienna's fingers tap nervously against the backpack on her lap, a rhythm that speaks louder than words. And with each passing streetlight, Lena realizes she isn't just taking Sienna home. She's stepping into a battle she never saw coming. Lena unlocks the apartment door, praying the place looks warmer than it usually does. Sienna steps inside cautiously, her shoes barely making a sound against the creaky wooden floor. The small living room feels too quiet, too bare, like it's waiting for someone to give it purpose. Lena watches the girl scan the space, her small shoulders still tight, her eyes flicking from corner to corner as if checking for danger. Lena swallows hard, wishing she had something comforting to offer besides secondhand furniture and a stubborn heartbeat that refuses to quit. She kneels beside Sienna, trying to shrink the space between them without pushing too hard. The air vibrates with unspoken questions, but neither of them is ready to ask or answer. Instead, they stand together in the heavy quiet, two bruised souls learning the shape of their new beginning. The next morning slams into Lena harder than she expects. Sunlight sneaking through the blinds like an intruder. She finds Sienna already awake on the couch, knees tucked to her chest, eyes locked on the door, as if expecting someone to burst in and take her away. Lena rubs the sleep from her face, feeling the sting of last night's fear still sitting heavy in her ribs. She wants to ease the tension in the room, but before she can speak, her phone buzzes with messages. Whispers from town, questions she never asked for, rumors spreading faster than truth can catch. And beneath it all, the sharp thud of footsteps echoes in her memory. The unmistakable rhythm of Marla Quinn closing in. Lena kneels beside Sienna, trying to project strength she doesn't feel, promising silently that she won't let anyone take this child. Even if the whole world is already choosing sides. Lena forces herself out the door with Sienna close beside her, heading toward the hardware store where she's worked nearly her whole adult life. The walk should feel familiar. Same cracked sidewalks, same morning chill. But today, every glance from a passerby feels sharp, like the town itself is judging her for daring to bring a child home. Sienna clings to her sleeve, stiff as a board whenever someone looks their way. Lena swallows the growing tightness in her chest, reminding herself to breathe, to keep moving, to pretend she isn't seconds from unravel. When they reach the store, the bell above the door jingles innocently, but the tension inside snaps the moment she sees Marla Quinn standing at the counter. Marla's smile is polished, cold, rehearsed, and Lena knows instantly that the storm she feared has already arrived. Marla's voice slices through the air like a blade dipped in honey, sweet on the surface but poisonous underneath. She leans against the counter, pretending this is a casual visit, but Lena feels the trap tightening with every word. Sienna hides behind her hip, small fingers gripping the denim of Lena's jacket, trying to make herself invisible. Marla speaks about concern and proper care, her tone dripping with the kind of judgment meant to break someone slowly. Lena clenches her jaw so hard it aches, refusing to let her fear show. She knows Marla's influence runs deep in this town, knows one whisper from her can tilt opinions like dominoes. But Lena also feels something rising inside her, a quiet fire sparked by the tiny hand clutching her side. And when Marla hints that keeping Sienna might be beyond her capabilities, Lena's anger snaps awake like a storm. By lunchtime, Lena's nerves feel scraped raw. Marla had left hours ago, but her words linger, like a stain Lena can't wash off. Customers pass by with sideways glances, whispering the way people do when they think their kindness is too precious to risk on someone like her. Lena's chest tightens each time she notices Sienna flinch at sudden noises or twist the strap of her backpack until her knuckles turn white. When Caleb Rowan steps through the door, Lena's breath catches, not out of romance, but out of relief so sharp it nearly hurts. Caleb is steady like carved wood, the kind of person whose presence makes the air set. He sees the tension instantly, his brow tightening with quiet concern. And for the first time today, Lena feels like she doesn't have to stand alone. Caleb crouches beside Sienna, speaking gently, letting her decide whether to meet his eyes. Slowly, Sienna peeks at him, her small shoulders relaxing by a fraction. Lena watches, surprised by the warmth blooming in her chest, something she hasn't felt in a long time. Caleb doesn't ask questions, doesn't pry, he just stays, grounding her in a moment she didn't realize she desperately needed. When he rises, he tells Lena he heard Marla Quinn has been stirring things up again, and the warning in his voice sends a shiver down her spine. She tries to shrug it off, but the truth is clear. Marla isn't finished, not even close. And as Lena turns her gaze towards Sienna, who finally reaches for her hand, she feels the weight of the fight ahead. But she also feels something else. Something fierce growing in her chest. Resolve. The evening crowds thin as Lena walks Sienna home, the cold settling in like a warning. Every step feels heavier, weighed down by Marla's shadow stretching across their day. Sienna grips Lena's fingers a little tighter with each passing car, her small hand trembling as though she expects someone to snatch her away. Lena fights the knot climbing her throat, wishing she could wrap the girl in a world where no one has the power to steal her peace. When they reach the apartment, a white envelope sits on their doorframe like a silent threat. Lena freezes, her stomach dropping as she picks it up. Legal wording stares back at her. Sharp, cruel, final. Marla is taking her to court. A cold rush shoots through Lena's chest. She feels Sienna lean into her, seeking safety she isn't sure she can give. But she forces herself to breathe, to straighten, to hold the trembling child closer. Because losing is not an option. Not anymore. Inside the apartment, Lena spreads the documents across the kitchen table, her hands shaking despite her efforts to remain calm. Sienna sits nearby, knees tucked under her chin, watching Lena with quiet fear, as if reading the truth in the tight lines around her mouth. The legal papers are filled with accusations: unfit guardian, unstable environment, unprepared caretaker. Words designed to destroy her one by one. Lena's heartbeat pounds in her ears as she flips through page after page until she reaches the part that steals her breath. Marla is claiming she was promised custody before Lena's sister died. Something inside Lena snaps with a sharp, hot burn. She whispers a shaky apology to Sienna for letting fear show, then slowly straightens her shoulders. She won't let lies rewrite their future. Not when Sienna's entire world is sitting across from her, waiting for her to fight. Lena knows she can't face this alone, so she takes Sienna and walks to Caleb's workshop, the scent of sawdust drifting through the evening air. Wooden boards clatter softly inside as Caleb looks up, immediately sensing something is wrong. Lena's voice cracks as she explains, the words spilling out faster than she can control. Caleb listens with stillness only years of carrying heavy truths can teach. When he steps closer, Lena feels the tight walls inside her chest loosen, just a little, because he doesn't look at her with doubt, only with belief. Sienna edges close to Caleb, drawn by the calm he carries like warmth. Caleb promises they'll find out the truth about Marla's claim. And for the first time today, Lena feels a flicker of hope beneath the fear, small but alive. Caleb's calm guidance leads Lena to a truth buried beneath years of silence. He pulls out an old community ledger, records of donations, promises, and agreements kept by the town, long before Lena understood how things worked here. As they flip through the pages together, a name appears again and again. Marla Quinn, attached to projects that quietly benefited her businesses more than the town. And then, tucked between the lines, a note referencing Lena's sister, a meeting scheduled weeks before she died. Lena's breath catches, her pulse racing with a new kind of fear. Something wasn't just wrong in the present. It had roots tangled deep in her sister's last days. Sienna rests her head on Lena's arm, sensing the shift. And Lena realizes this fight isn't just about custody. It's about uncovering the truth her sister never had the chance to speak. As the night deepens, Lena walks home with Sienna asleep in her arms, her small breaths warm against Lena's neck. Every street lamp hums with the weight of the truth she's now carrying. Her sister had been meeting with Marla before everything fell apart. The chilling possibility twists inside Lena. What if Marla wasn't just trying to take Sienna now, but had played a part in the storm that tore their family apart? Once inside the apartment, Lena lays Sienna gently on the couch, brushing stray hair from her forehead. She sinks into a chair, hands trembling, mind racing. The world feels heavier than ever, but something fierce rises inside her. A strength she didn't know she had. She will dig. She will fight. She will learn every secret Marla buried. Because Sienna deserves the truth, and Lena refuses to let fear win. Morning hits with a violence Lena didn't expect. A hard knock shakes the apartment, and Sienna jolts awake, eyes wide, terror already blooming. Lena's pulse spikes as she opens the door to a courier holding a thick envelope. Another hit from Marla. This one isn't just legal papers. It's a notice of emergency hearing. 3 days. 3 days to prove she deserves to keep the child who clings to her now, like she's the last safe place in the world. Sienna whispers a tiny, broken, "Don't let them." And Lena swears something inside her, fractures and reforges into steel. She signs for the documents, hands trembling, and watches the courier disappear without a second glance. The silence that follows feels sharp. Lena closes the door, locking it twice, then drops to her knees beside Sienna, pulling her close. She doesn't have answers yet, but she has 3 days, and she'll fight until the last breath. The day spirals downward fast. At work, Lena pushes through her shift, while Sienna stays close, drawing quiet patterns on scrap paper behind the counter. But when Lena returns from helping a customer, she finds her boss waiting with a grave expression. He doesn't meet her eyes as he explains. Marla made calls, stirred rumors, questioned Lena's suitability around customers. The final blow, he's letting her go. Until things settle. Shame burns through Lena like fire. She nods, swallowing back the humiliation clawing at her throat. Sienna stands behind her, eyes wide, understanding too much for someone her age. The moment they step outside, the cold air slaps Lena across the face, and the world feels painfully small. She forces a smile for Sienna's sake, but inside she feels the ground crumbling. The fight is getting harder, and the clock is ticking. As they turn a corner to head home, the weight of the day pressing down like a storm cloud. A sudden sound freezes Sienna in place. A car door slamming. She spins, eyes filled with terror, then bolts down the sidewalk before Lena can react. Panic tears through Lena as she races after her, shouting her name, heart pounding like it might burst. Sienna's small figure darts between parked cars down an alley, fighting ghosts no one else can see. Lena stumbles, breath burning, terrified she'll lose her, terrified she's already failed her. When she finally spots Sienna crouched behind a dumpster, shaking uncontrollably, Lena's whole body collapses with relief. She drops to her knees and wraps Sienna up, letting the girl cry into her chest. In that moment, Lena realizes this isn't just fear. Something from Sienna's past is chasing her, something tied to the truth she hasn't told yet. Back home, after Sienna's crying fades into exhausted silence, Lena lays her on the couch and sits nearby, searching her face for answers she's too afraid to ask. Sienna clutches the edge of her backpack even in sleep, fingers twitching like she's still running. Lena's mind churns with questions, each heavier than the last. Why did Sienna react like that? What memory is hiding behind those terrified eyes? She opens the backpack gently, hoping for a clue, but all she finds is a small stuffed bear with one missing button eye. The sight of it steals her breath. Something so loved, so worn. And tucked beneath it, a folded drawing. Lena opens it and feels her chest tighten. It's Sienna's picture of 3 figures, but the tallest one has no face. Something unspoken, something dark, sits inside that blank space. Lena swears the truth is close and dangerous. Night grows deep, heavy, and still. Lena sits at the kitchen table long after Sienna falls asleep, her mind racing through a maze of worry, grief, and fear. The drawing lies before her, like a silent confession. Every instinct screams that the faceless figure isn't just a nightmare. It's a memory Sienna hasn't found the words to share. As the fridge hums softly, Lena presses her palms together, steadying herself. She knows now that the court hearing won't just be about proving she's a fit guardian. It will be about protecting Sienna from whatever truth that faceless shadow represents. When a soft sound breaks the silence, Lena turns to see Sienna standing in the doorway, half asleep, reaching out for her. Lena scoops her up, holding her tightly as the girl lays her head on her shoulder. And Lena makes a vow in the quiet of that moment. No matter what it takes, she'll keep her safe. The next morning, Lena wakes with a fire she didn't have yesterday. Fear still sits inside her, heavy and cold, but now it's wrapped in something sharper. Determination. Sienna sits at the kitchen table, eating cereal in tiny, quiet bites, her eyes still swollen from the night before. Lena brushes her hair gently, promising with her touch what she's too afraid to say aloud. "I won't let anyone hurt you again." She packs the drawing and the worn bear into her bag, both clues and comfort, then heads out with Sienna's hand tucked firmly in her own. The town feels different today, colder, watching her with quiet judgment. But Lena keeps walking. She's going back to the workshop. Back to the only person who has stood beside her without question. Caleb deserves to know everything, and she needs help finding the truth buried under Marla's lies. And this time, she won't run from it. At Caleb's workshop, the air smells of fresh sawdust and warm wood, steady and grounding. Caleb looks up when they step in, and the moment his eyes meet Lena's, he knows. She places the drawing on the table between them, watching his expression shift from confusion to something darker. Concern, maybe anger. He asks nothing at first, choosing silence that feels kinder than questions. Then he begins sorting through old town ledgers and records again, digging with her, determined. Sienna curls up in a corner with her backpack, but Lena catches her glancing toward Caleb every few minutes, drawn to the quiet strength he carries. Lena feels her guard lower in small, cautious pieces. When Caleb finally finds a name tied to Marla's meetings, a man both she and Sienna's mother knew, Lena's breath leaves her in a rush. This is the thread they needed. The truth is close enough to touch. With the name Caleb uncovered, Lena pushes deeper, digging through every public file she can find at the town office. Sienna sits beside her in a plastic chair, swinging her feet nervously, watching Lena's determination grow stronger with each page. When Lena discovers the man, Derek Haynes, was a former employee of Marla's, fired weeks before her sister died, chills ripple down her spine. The timeline lines up too well. Sienna quietly slides her hand onto Lena's arm, sensing her distress. Lena squeezes back, whispering, "We're getting close." But the closer they get, the more dangerous it feels. As Lena copies the documents, she catches the clerk watching her with wary eyes, and whispers spread across the office like smoke. Marla's reach is everywhere, but Lena refuses to look away. She's done being afraid. Lena and Caleb meet again just past sunset, spreading the collected documents across his workshop table like pieces of a broken puzzle. Sienna sits nearby, hugging her purple backpack as if it holds her whole world. As Caleb reads the files, his expression shifts, slowly, steadily, from concentration to something grim. Derek Haynes had been seen arguing with Lena's sister days before her death. The police dismissed it as unrelated. Marla funded the investigation. Caleb looks at Lena with a softness that breaks her, because he knows, and she knows, that this was never a simple custody battle. Lena grips the table edge, her knuckles turning white, fear and rage blending in her chest. Sienna approaches quietly, standing beside her as if sensing the storm rising. Lena pulls her close and whispers a promise she intends to keep. "We're going to finish this." The truth hits Lena like a tidal wave. Her sister didn't just leave the world quietly. Someone pushed her toward the edge, and Marla was close enough to know why. Standing in the workshop doorway, Lena feels the weight of everything she has uncovered pressed down on her shoulders. But underneath that weight, something powerful rises. Resolve, fierce and bright. Sienna steps beside her, sliding her small hand into hers, and Lena realizes the girl isn't trembling anymore. Caleb tells her he'll stand with her in the hearing, no matter what Marla throws at them. Lena nods, breathing through the fear until it turns into something stronger. A steady flame. They have evidence. They have each other. And for the first time, Lena feels like the ground beneath her is solid. Tomorrow, she'll confront Marla. Tonight, she'll hold Sienna close and let hope breathe. The morning of the hearing arrives with skies the color of bruises, heavy and uncertain. Lena stands in front of the mirror, smoothing her shirt with hands that won't stop shaking. Behind her, Sienna sits on the couch, watching closely, sensing the fear Lena tries to hide. Caleb arrives early, knocking gently, stepping in with a calm presence that steadies the air. Lena gathers the files, every document, every record, every truth she's fought to uncover, and places them in her bag. The moment she turns, Sienna stands and reaches for her hand without hesitation, something she never used to do. That small movement hits Lena harder than any threat Marla could make. They leave the apartment together, three people bound by something deeper than fear. On the way to the courthouse, Lena feels the fire inside her grow. Not wild, not chaotic, but controlled. She's not just walking into battle, she's walking in with purpose. The courthouse feels colder than Lena remembers, its walls towering and echoing every footstep like a warning. Sienna clings to her hand tightly, her small grip grounding Lena more than she would admit. Caleb walks beside them, his steady pace acting like a shield. As they approach the hearing room, whispers ripple through the hallway, half-truths and judgments spoken by people who never cared to know her story. Lena keeps her chin up, refusing to shrink. When Marla steps out of a nearby office, dressed in polished confidence, her eyes gleam with something sharp. She greets Lena with a smile too sweet to be real, the kind of smile meant to crush hope. But Lena doesn't flinch. She stands taller, pulling Sienna behind her gently. Caleb's quiet presence at her side strengthens the air around them. For the first time, Lena isn't intimidated by Marla's power. She's ready for the truth to speak. The hearing begins, and Lena feels the weight of every gaze as she takes her seat. Marla speaks first, her voice smooth and practiced, painting herself as a calm, concerned guardian. But Lena notices the cracks, the tightening jaw, the slight shake in her hand when she presents her evidence. When it's her turn, Lena breathes deep and stands. Her voice trembles at first, but as she explains the truth about the documents, the meetings, the inconsistencies surrounding her sister, her words grow stronger. Caleb watches her with quiet pride, and Sienna sits close, eyes locked on Lena with trust so deep it almost breaks her. The judge listens intently, flipping through the files Lena spent nights gathering, and for the first time, Lena sees the shift, not in the judge, but in herself. She isn't speaking from fear anymore. She's speaking from truth, and truth has weight Marla can't bend. As the hearing continues, Lena watches Marla unravel, slowly at first, then faster when confronted with the inconsistencies in her story. Caleb presents the records they discovered, showing Marla's connection to Derek Haynes and the timeline surrounding her sister. The courtroom shifts. Marla's confidence cracks, her voice tightening as she attempts to redirect blame. Lena's pulse races, not from fear, but from the realization that the truth is finally rising to the surface. Sienna squeezes her hand beneath the table, grounding her in the most human way. When the judge questions Marla directly, her polished mask slips for a brief, telling second, and in that moment, Lena sees the truth. Marla never expected her to fight. That underestimation is the very thing giving Lena strength now. For the first time, she feels like she's standing on solid ground. When the hearing ends, the judge announces a temporary decision. Sienna stays with Lena while an investigation opens into Marla's actions. Relief hits Lena like a warm wave, and for a moment she can't breathe from the gratitude flooding her chest. Sienna lets out a quiet sigh and leans against her, no longer trembling. Caleb places a steady hand on Lena's shoulder, anchoring her in the whirlwind of emotion. Marla leaves the courtroom with stiff shoulders, but Lena no longer fears her shadow. Outside, the sun breaks through thick clouds, bright and warm on Lena's skin. She feels something inside shift. Not just hope, but confidence. This battle isn't over, but she no longer stands on shaking ground. She has built something stronger, something that won't crumble. And as Sienna slips her hand into hers, Lena realizes the truth. She's already rising above everything that once tried to crush her. The investigation moves fast. faster than anyone in town expects. Lena spends each day gathering evidence, speaking to people who once kept quiet out of fear, but now feel cracks in Marla's control. With Caleb beside her and Sienna never far, Lena feels herself changing. She no longer walks with her head low or avoids people's eyes. She stands straighter, speaks clearer, and moves through the world with a purpose she never imagined she could have. One night, while Sienna colors quietly on the floor and Caleb helps Lena sort documents, Lena realizes something powerful. She's not just fighting for Sienna anymore. She's fighting for the woman she never believed she could be. That truth settles warm and steady in her chest. She doesn't know what tomorrow brings, but for the first time she knows she's ready. A breakthrough arrives when Caleb receives word from a retired officer willing to talk. Lena's heart races as they meet him in a quiet diner outside town. He reveals the truth Lena feared. Marla had pushed to close the case surrounding her sister's death, refusing deeper investigation into Derek Haynes' involvement. Sienna sits beside Lena, listening with wide, silent eyes as the puzzle pieces finally lock into place. The truth is heavy, dark, and painful. But Lena doesn't crumble. She absorbs it, breathes through it, and feels strength rise inside her. She thanks the officer with a steady voice, then gathers Sienna into her arms. This isn't just evidence now, it's closure. For her sister, for Sienna, for herself, Lena stands ready to carry the truth straight to the one who tried to bury it. Armed with undeniable proof, Lena walks into the final review meeting with her head high. The boardroom feels oppressive, but she doesn't shrink this time. Sienna sits quietly beside her, hands folded, trusting Lena completely. Marla waits across the table, polished as ever, but clearly rattled. Lena places the documents on the table, statements, dates, connections, everything Marla tried to hide. The air shifts immediately. Murmurs stir. Marla tries to defend herself, but the cracks in her voice reveal everything. Lena doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't argue. She simply tells the truth with calm steadiness. Every word building a wall Marla cannot climb. By the time Lena finishes, silence hangs sharp in the room. And for the first time, Lena sees Marla not as a giant, but as someone small, shaken, and powerless against truth. Hours later, Lena receives the call she's been praying for. The board has ruled in her favor. Marla is suspended from her positions pending deeper investigation, and custody remains fully with Lena. When she hangs up, her hands shake, not from fear, but from overwhelming relief. Sienna watches her closely, nervous but hopeful. Lena kneels, pulls the girl into her arms, and tells her softly, "You're safe. You're home." Sienna's tears come fast, soaking into Lena's shoulder. But these tears are different, lighter, almost freeing. Caleb steps beside them, resting a warm hand on Lena's back, eyes shining with pride. The air in the room shifts, filled with something new, peace. For the first time since Sienna arrived, Lena feels like the ground beneath them isn't crumbling. It's steady, strong, the beginning of something real and lasting. Weeks later, Lena stands outside her new community workshop, the sign freshly hung, the space built from every broken piece life once threw at her. Neighbors gather, curious and supportive. Sienna stands proudly beside her, holding her hand. Caleb waits nearby, ready to help cut the ribbon. Lena's heart swells at the sight. This place isn't just a workshop. It's a platform she built above every voice that tried to push her down. Sienna looks up at her with a smile that melts the last pieces of Lena's doubt. She squeezes the girl's hand and steps forward, breathing in the air of a new beginning. When the ribbon snaps and the crowd cheers, Lena feels something powerful settle inside her. She isn't just surviving anymore. She's rising. She's building. And she's finally standing where she belongs, above the shadows and the light she created herself.